everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is MTG Ghoul Dude, and today I wanted to try and get y'all's opinion on these new lands that we have coming in with. Here we go. Well, murders at Karlov Manor. So recently, I've seen a couple of other different content creators. Excuse me. Looking at these lands and saying that some of them are going to be, the next modern playable lands. But I don't know. I mean, I'm just coming to see you got your guys' opinion on them because there is some power coming in with these lands, but not all of them. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, I am talking about these new uh enter the battlefield tapped lands with the land type. So this one is Undercity Sewers, and Murders at Karlov Manor is bringing us all 10 of them, not just 5 here, but because this is an individual standalone set, it will be all 10, which usually is what we see whenever we go to Ravnica. If it's like especially in this last remastered set, we've seen all 10 Shocklands reprinted. But I feel like there is some utility behind these lands, but it's not gonna be, just the next big best thing. So if you don't know, this is like the third, I believe. No, the fourth. This is the fourth reincarnation of a land cycle type that they've started doing. But I wanted to see what y'all's opinion was because I think these are pretty good, but I don't think they're modern playable. They do have some utility because they are fetchable because they do have all the types, So if you're going with the polluted delta, you're gonna have, the options to tap one, sacrifice it, and then get in Undercity Sewers. Well, everybody's saying that even though it enters the battlefield tapped, the utility of surveilling one will be good enough to play in more better, bigger constructed formats or more powerful constructed formats. But I mean, I don't know. Just we've seen these lands, and I don't know if I feel like these should be rare. I mean, they're good. We've seen lands that do this at rare. We've seen them with the fetid pools, which we'll get to earlier because I want to critique it of this Undercity Sewers against all the different lands that we've had. But I don't know. I mean, all right, so let's get into that. So we've already seen, we know what the fetch lands do. You're gonna fetch it for the type and everything. But what is the utility of this land? So against a watery grave, this could help, smooth out your draw a little bit. Even though it doesn't come into play untapped if you pay more life. If you don't bolt yourself to polluted delta, watery grave into a spell. Like if you're a more controlling deck, like if you're playing like blue white, that surveil might get you closer to what you need, in my opinion. But these will not in no way replace a shock land. Maybe in more budget decks they'll replace, like help build that mana base up to where it needs to be. But I don't believe that they'll replace them because you probably want to put these in there regardless for mana fixing. Now, to compare the Undercity Sewers to fetid pools, now it does have the typing, yes, and it does still enter tapped, but you get the added benefit of cycling. Now, I'm not upset about the cycling. To be honest, I didn't play with this card. I did, crack a bunch of them, and I did start, trading them off during their high points back in Amonkhet, but I didn't see a lot of use for me, even though there was, zombie synergies for. I did play a zombie deck back then. But I feel like these are still played in modern today. Like these are still worth something, even a little bit, even though they've been reprinted a bunch of different times. And they seen a lot of play, and they still see play here and there in different decks in Modern, if I'm not mistaken. But to compare it to Fetid Pools, and then to compare it to the old ETB Gain of Life lands, these are just dookie compared to the older lands, but playing on a budget, these are amazing because you still get your colors and you get a slight life gain advantage. Now, I'm playing in more budget decks. If you're playing at kitchen table, these are fine. These are great, in my opinion. I'm not going to doubt anybody or doubt on anybody for, playing, fun Magic. Not like anybody else's, you know, CEDH or big EDH or casual kitchen table Magic isn't fun. Fun is subjective. If you think that's fun, then that's fun. And, that's up to y'all. And I think that's cool. But to me, playing as an EDH player, Dismal Backwater, unless I'm like really tight for fixing or I'm really tight on a budget, if it's black and blue, I probably won't play a Dismal Backwater. I said Dismal Backwater. Wow. But yeah. And then we have the OGs, the Temples, which still enter tap, but they do not have land typings with them. Which these were indexed for forever, especially in Commander, where it would help, smooth that next draw. But I don't know. In my opinion, I feel like that if you're playing graveyard-based synergies, you won't, like, even if it's just a card that you don't need, if you're playing an instant or sorcery-based synergies in the graveyard or anywhere, if you don't need it, it can be thrown in the graveyard. But here, you're just scrying it to the bottom, so you're really not getting any benefit because that card is still in your library, and that card is still, you could probably shuffle and probably still draw it. Where against the sewer, you probably won't draw it because you'll probably just throw it away. You might just flash it back or something. Which with the sewers, you have that ability because you can just take that flashback card from the top of your library and throw it in the graveyard and use it later. Where the temple, you have to put it back on the bottom of your library, or you have to draw it and then discard it somehow. And then now we're going to move on to the other non-rare cycles, starting off with the Kaldheim versions. Like here, Ice Tunnel, you have a snow land island swamp, and yes, it does enter tapped. It doesn't have any other abilities, but this is useful in your base, your land base that is snow synergistic. Like if you were playing snow lands and you're fetching 4 snow lands with like an Into the North or something, this is where those lands shine. If you're playing with Into the North and you're playing multiple colors that allow for green. And I feel like these are below the Undercity Sewers unless you're playing snow, because then you want these over the sewers. But like I said, these are all niche, situational, situational theories on whether or not you would run the Undercity Sewers or whether or not the sewers is good or bad. And then we have the more recently printed Contaminated Aquifer. It does share the land types and it does enter tap, but that's it. Now this is the one where I feel like people just kind of lost their minds at first. Yeah, because we seen these and we were like, oh man, we can use our fetch lands to crack for a land that we don't have to pay for. And they're quite cheap. Yeah, I do agree. If you're using, if you're playing kitchen table and they're allowing shocks and fetches and more, or they're on more of a budget, these are probably the go-to in my opinion. Like these aren't bad. Like I'm not criticizing these as bad because anything that helps you play the game can't be that bad. Now, I'm not saying they're great, but they're not bad. So, what are you guys' opinion on this situation? Because I see Undercity Sewers as a pretty good addition to are a new piece that we can add into our land bases. Now, whether or not I feel like these should have been rares is a totally different talk, because I don't see this cycle as being more than a rare. Like I feel like they've already set the precedent that these lands can be less than what we're doing, especially when it comes to their rarity. But it is what it is. If they decide they want to make Shocklands mythic rares for the rest of time after, today, then that's them. But we're still gonna have the rare versions that we've seen. They want to turn a contaminated aquifer into a rare, that's up to them. But that is going to be it for today, guys. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time in the graveyard.